quarter. Okay, you're going.
Officials start. This is the commercial market lamb class. Again, what's important on market lambs is muscle, fat, ratios between the two, and of course there might be some looking at structural correctness when we get into close pairs. And I gave you a little bit of data on this class, as it is a commercial class. I think instead of just show ring lambs, I think there's some performance that can also be attributed to market lamb. So I think a birth date, a weaning weight, and some average daily gain can also be an advantage. And if you look at that data on this data sheet, you can definitely see that there's some differences in growth rate for sure. There's some differences in current body weight that can maybe help you lead into some answers on this. If we go through the questions first, and we'll go back and forth through these, and some of them are based on the data and some of them are based on the live animals. Of course, question number 1 is which lamb is the narrowest made and lightest muscled? And if we evaluate the lambs over here and we look at them, where do we look for muscle? We look down the top, we look through their hip shape, we look through their hind legs, and how much muscle definition they have and shape they have. To me, it's pretty easy to get down to at least 2 of them that are a little bit lighter muscled, and especially back through their hip and hind legs in lamb number 1 and number 4. And I think when you get to evaluating them up over the top, I see more steep shape and more narrowness and lack of muscle definition in the rack right behind the shoulders in the 4 lamb than I see in the number 1 lamb. So I definitely think that in this class, the 4 lamb is pretty easily the lightest muscled. Then if we go to the next question, which lamb should have the biggest ribeye or the largest ribeye? The ribeye is the muscle that we measure when we're looking at carcass traits, and that's the muscle when a judge comes up and handles lambs in a show ring. That's the muscle that runs from the back of their shoulders all the way back into their hip bone, especially through their loin and rack area, right over their rib cage, basically right through here is where their ribeye is. They're going to have a round muscle on either side. And to me, it's just the opposite of that. There's 2 in here that have more rack shape and more width through their loin, and that's in lambs 2 and 3. But I still think that the 2 lamb has just a little bit more shape visually. When you look at him there behind his shoulders, through his rack, through his loin, should have a larger ribeye. Which is the fattest lamb in class? And fat can be relative, but when we're not handling the lambs and we're just looking at them live, we're going to look at places like right behind their elbow or down low on their front leg, or right behind their front leg in their front flank, back in their rear flank, shape and definition down their top. If they're flat down their top, they tend to be fatter. And the thing that I always tell kids is if they're shaped more like a football or a rowboat versus an old Coke bottle, and most of you probably aren't going to know what a Coke bottle looks like, but an hourglass or something like that, the widest place on them is right through the back of their rib or through the center portion of their body. That indicates that they're a fat lamb. I also think, even though he's probably got the largest ribeye, I also think the 2 lamb is probably the fattest lamb in class as well. Now, is he too fat? In this situation, I do not think so. I don't think he's got any too much fat on him, but I do think he's the fattest lamb in this class. Then, question number 4, which lamb is the fastest gaining lamb in class, or which lamb gained the fastest? That's pretty easy to see right up here. Average daily gain tells you how much they gained on a per day basis. The 3 lamb gained the fastest in this class. He gained just a little over 7/10 of a pound a day. So that's the answer there. Trick question, I just kind of wanted to use a lot of times in a judging contest class, you're going to use ID points. And an ID point in this class would be if they're wethers or ewe lambs, if they're males or females. So I asked how many wether lambs were in this class. And if you look really closely, they're all ewe lambs. So if you look at the sex organs on these animals, they all are females, so they're all ewe lambs. So the answer to that would be 0. True or false? This is kind of a question that I wanted to think about a little bit. True or false? All of these lambs likely are from a maternal ewe mated to a terminal sire ram. Okay, so these lambs are all speckle-faced. In the show ring, your most common today would be a Dorset Advantage, which would be a Dorset ewe on a Hamp or Suffolk buck. In this case, these are all but one of them are out of Polypay ewes, which the Polypay is classified as a maternal breed bred to our Hampshire bucks. So that's the answer to that question is true. Which lamb would bring the highest total dollars in today's normal market? Basically, how do we sell lambs today? We sell them on a per pound basis. If they all sell for the same per pound, the heaviest lamb in class is going to bring the most money. The heaviest lamb in here is the 3 lamb. He's going to bring, if it's $1 a pound, he's going to bring it $151. 2 is going to bring $149. So that's what I was just trying to get at there on the overall market right now. If we're not giving any premiums for muscle or leanness, the 3 lamb is going to bring the highest dollar value on today's market. Which lamb would you estimate has the thickest body wall? 9 times out of 10, the fattest lamb in class will also have the thickest body wall, and the body wall is over the lower or mid rib. So that's basically halfway down the side on these guys. So it's another measurement of fat thickness, but we measure it lower on the rib cage. Most of these lambs, the fattest body wall is going to be the fattest lamb in class, which in this case happens to be 2. I think 3 will be the next one that's got a little bit more body wall, but still those 2 lambs have a tremendous amount of muscle advantage over the other 2. Which lamb was raised to weaning on milk replacer? And this is kind of an interesting question, one that I probably should have been a little bit more specific on. But again, rear type, wean type tells you how the lambs were born, born reared is how they were raised. They were all born twins or triplets. This one is the oddball, ART, and that actually is an abbreviation for artificially reared. So 4 is the lamb that was raised on milk replacer. So kind of a quick trick question. I just kind of wanted to see if you could think your thing through and use reason for that. And that's where that is, the artificially reared lamb raised on milk replacer. Which lamb would have the highest percentage of boneless, closely trimmed retail cuts? That's just basically a percentage that tells us this lamb's got less fat, is trimmer, is leaner, has a higher yield grade. In this class, to me, the trimmest lamb in class is pretty easily the 4 lamb. So as a percentage, he's going to have the highest percentage of boneless, closely trimmed retail cuts. Does that make him the best lamb? Not necessarily. In this case, I still don't think he's the best lamb by far in this class, but he is going to have a higher percentage of boneless, closely trimmed retail cuts because he's the leanest lamb in class. If you evaluate this class as commercial lambs that have grown well, have all been fed the same, the 2 fastest growing lambs, the 2 most muscular lambs in class, the 2 lambs that are going to have the highest percentage of edible product or highest pounds of edible product are the 2 bigger lambs in lambs 2 and 3. The 2 lighter muscled lambs are 1 and 4. I thought it was pretty easily to sort them that way, put the 2 bigger lambs up the top, the 2 smaller lambs on the bottom, and then we opted to use the 1 lamb over 4 on the bottom just because he's got a little bit more rack shape, or she's got a little bit more rack and loin shape, a little bit longer bodied. I just think there's a notch more muscle there, so we're going to go ahead and go 1 and 4 on the bottom. The top pair, these are actually triplet or twin sisters. They're very similar to each other. It's just the 3 lamb is just a tick bigger, tick heavier, probably a little bit leaner, especially if they're basically the same weight and they're just more frame size there. They're just going to be a little bit more lean product there. So I placed the class 3, 2, 1, 4. And cut the class 2, 5, and 2. So if you switch the top pair, you'd get a 48 out of 50. You switch the bottom pair, you get a 48 out of 50. If you switch the middle, it costs you a few more points. And if you go online, you'll see the results and how you did on that class. So that's the commercial market lambs, placings 3, 2, 1, 4, cuts of 2, 5, and 2.